Welcome, newcomers, members, and friends to our worship service at Central Unitarian Church. My name is Alie Christopher, and I serve as CUC's Director of Family Faith Formation.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Andrée. I am minister here at Central Unitarian Church.
CUC is an inclusive community of all ages, which embraces diversity in identity, expression, and spiritual belief. Many of our members and friends find inspiration, hope, and renewal with us. We hope that you find something meaningful about our service today.
If you're visiting us in person, please be sure to say hello to one of our welcome hosts. Who are our welcome hosts this morning? Patricia and Edie, so please be sure to see them after service. If you are visiting us online, we encourage you to take a moment to sign our online guest book. The link is currently in the chat at the bottom of your screen.
We are grateful for all those helping to make this sermon happen, including Matt Anderson, our music director, our readers, Kortequee, Sam Demetrius, and Amy Usatine. We also like to thank our tech support team, Phil Sosinsky, and John Freund in spirit today. Right?
Yes.
He's not here, right?
John
Okay.
Freud is out
I didn't know if I
Hamilton
saw him
this morning.
Oh, very exciting.
We invite you to stay after service for coffee, conversation, and connection in the same space. Today's coffee hour is hosted by Winsome Demetrius. Thank you, Winsome. And we have lovely flowers. Who brought these lovely flowers to share with us today? Thank you, Patricia Joseph, for our flowers and our service today. This morning, we have a couple of announcements. First, help support neighbors experiencing homelessness and hunger. Family Promise, a Bergen County Super 50/50 raffle, is a fun way to support programs that have a big impact on vulnerable community members. The first prize winner will receive 25% of the proceeds, up to $25,000, plus there will be 16 additional cash prizes. All proceeds help to fund programs that provide temporary housing and life-changing support services to working families experiencing homelessness that address hunger through the walk-in dinner program, which serves more than 200 meals a day. The program is on track to serve 70,000 meals this year, up from 53,000 last year. The raffle drawing will take place on March 21st, 2024 at 11 a.m. Winners will be called and their names will be posted on the Family Promise website. Tickets are $100 each. For additional information and to purchase tickets, please see the link in our February bulletin or our weekly e-news. And we have another announcement from Clara Kraft, so I'm going to invite Clara to come up and share that announcement with us.
Hello, my name is Clara, and for the month of February, we are going to be raising money for the donation to Center for Food Action. Center for Food Action is an organization that helps struggling people put food on their tables and keep a roof over their heads. But we need your help. Our goal for the end of February is $1,000, but the first week went by, and at the end of the first week, we only earned $23 for the Center for Food Action. If we want to get to our goal, we are going to need more contributions. If we want to reach the goal, if you just donate $5, that will help so much on our way to $1,000. Thanks for listening, and if you want to donate after service, I'll bring out the money bucket and my dad's Venmo account.
Thank you, Clara, for leading that.
Just a real quick ad. This is something that's near and dear to the hearts of our family. The times that we think we get together with family, friends, is around food. And the reality is there's folks in Bergen County who don't have food to put on the table. So consider that when thinking about what we're doing for the month of February. It's kind of an in-between time of the holidays and a difficult time for some folks. So whatever you can donate or bring for food would really be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you to the Quick Loan Craft family for organizing that and for Clara for leading that. Now let us move more deeply into our service. I encourage you to take a moment to turn to those near you and offer them a warm welcome. always. Good morning. Today, our service celebrates Black History Month, and this is a time for us to practice centering Black voices and stories within our country's history and also within the history of our faith tradition. Such centering is a sacred task, and honoring the humanity of all is part of what we are doing. And to prepare for this task, for our opening words, I want to offer this invocation from Everett Hoagland, which was published in Blue Notes, an anthology of love, justice, and liberation. And this is a publication of Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. So again, this invocation is by Everett Hoagland. Architect of icebergs and rainbows, jeweler of crystals, sand grains, snowflakes, atoms, mason whose tools are glaciers, rain, rivers, ocean, chemist who made blood of seawater, bone of minerals and stone, milk of love. Whatever you are, I know this. Spinner, you are everywhere, in all the ever-changing above, whirling around us. Yes, in the loose strands, in the rough weave of the common cloth threaded with our DNA on the hubbed, spoked, spinning wheel that is our world, solar system, galaxy, universe. Help us to see ourselves in all creation, and all creation in ourselves in one another. Remind those of us who like connections made with smiles, metaphors, symbols, that all of us are, everything is already connected. Remind us that as the oceans go, so go we. As the air go, so goes we. As other forms of life on earth go, so go we. As our planet goes, so go we. Mysterious muse who inspired, in the beginning there was the word. Edit our thoughts, so our ethics are our politics, and our actions the afterthoughts of our words. Please rise and embody your spirit for our opening hymn. We did not hand out hymnals today. These are spirituals that don't need hymnals. We've got the lyrics up here on the screen. They are repetitive. So if you are unfamiliar with the tune as we go through a verse, you will pick up very quickly. Oh, I woke up this morning. Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I was walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I was sitting and praying with my mind stayed on freedom.
We light this chalice to remind us of our dreams, to nourish our heart, mind, and spirit, to work towards a better world for all, to embrace the whole of our human experience, to work on us and our gifts of the present, to create a community where each of us may find healing, transformation, and hope.
Good morning again. I'll be reading a story called Preaching to the Chickens. It's a story of John Lewis when he was young. It's by Jabari Asim, and it's illustrated by E.B. Lewis. Little John Lewis loved the spring. He loved it not only because it was the time when the whole planet came alive, but also because it was the season of the chicks. Winter was too cold to bring them safely into the world, and summer was too hot. Spring was just right. John was excited to be put in charge of the chickens. There were about 60 of them, Rhode Island Reds, strong-winged bantams, Dominiques with gray stripes as dull as dishwater and legs as yellow as daisies. John loved to see them flutter and strut and flap their wings. Every day, John got up early and fed them dried corn just shelled from the cob, and then lined their nests with fresh straw. Quack, 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 the chickens said. John knew they meant thank you. In a soft voice, John would say to them, "Enjoy this day that God has given us." The chickens, looking straight at him, seemed to understand. As much as John loved spring, he loved church even more. On Sundays, the whole family headed to services. John and his brother were dressed in slacks and crisp white shirts, his sisters in neat dresses. Outside the church, friends and relatives greeted each other with big smiles. Like the ministers he heard in church, John wanted to preach, so he gathered his chickens in the yard. John stretched his arms above his flock and let the words pour forth. The chickens nodded and dipped their beaks as if they agreed. They swayed to the rhythm of his voice. One day, the rolling storeman stopped by to make a trade. His truck was packed with flour, sugar, cooking oil, and bolts of cloth in bright colors. "I've got plenty of good things," he said to John's mom and dad. "I'll give them to you for a healthy hen." But John did not want to part with any of his chickens, and he knew they wanted to stay with him. He convinced his parents there were other things to trade, like eggs and seeds. The chickens stayed on the farm, and John learned to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves. John loved to tell the hens and chicks the good news. While he fed and watered them, he spoke about the value of hard work and patience. With faith and hope, he said, a bountiful harvest was sure to come. John's henhouse sermons became so regular that his brothers and sisters took to calling him preacher. He didn't mind. He knew that someday he'd speak before thousands. He hoped that his words would stir people's souls and move them to action. For now, though, he had his own church right here among the pine trees and rolling hills of southern Alabama. Morning would find him in the usual place, preaching to the chickens.
Here at Central Unitarian Church, we celebrate and practice our living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. And as we do so, we center love. We create a community of increasing care and compassion. We answer calls for equity and justice. We make meaning of our lives and the world around us. None of this is possible alone. Ours is a collective endeavor. We only reach beloved community together through contributions from each and every one of us. And your financial gifts are part of that contribution, helping to make this congregation both what it is and what it can be. Our offering this morning is a celebration of that contribution. Now, may our offering be received with gratitude.
Please join me in saying our dedication words. We dedicate these gifts in service of our mission to welcome all into a home of spiritual diversity that challenges us to become our best selves, to minister to one another in love, and to serve the greater community.
I now want to invite both Sia and Amy to come forward to offer us a litany of hope.
We offer a litany of hope made up of the images, names, and inspiring quotes of figures throughout Black American history as well as Unitarian Universalist history. Sojourner Truth, 1787 to 1883, activist. I will not allow my life's light to be determined by the darkness around me.
Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, 1825 to 1913, Unitarian abolitionist, author, lecturer, and activist. We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse on its own soul.
Fanny Barrier Williams, 1855 to 1944. Educator, women's rights activist, Unitarian. I dare not cease to hope and aspire and believe in human love and justice.
Ida B. Wells, 1862 to 1931, investigative journalist and activist. The way to right our wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them.
Joseph Fletcher Jordan, 1863 to 1925, Universalist minister. Preached a universalist message of love. Ran a school for African American children with his wife, May J. Jordan.
Egbert Ethelred Brown, 1875 to 1956, Unitarian minister. As we pray for peace in our time, O God, may we ourselves be at peace with the world, with ourselves, and with Thee. May we know that without love, there will never be peace. Teach us, therefore, to love. What does this world need more than love? Langston Hughes, 1901 to 1976, writer. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly.
Bayard Rustin, 1912 to 1987, activist. We are all one, and if we don't know it, we will learn it the hard way.
Rosa Parks, 1913 to 2005, activist. It takes more than one person to bring about peace. It takes all of us.
Now we take some time to enter into meditation and share with each other the joys and sorrows of this community. This is something we do each week as a way to care for each other. I have a few written announcements that I would like to share out loud, and then I will read any joys or sorrows offered in our chat. So any of you that are online, if you have a joy or sorrow to share, please type it in the chat. And then I'll turn back to this room and invite you to share out loud the name of anybody else who you're holding in your heart today. Following that, we'll enter into a moment of silence and a moment of prayer. So let's prepare ourselves first. Let us take a breath in together, breathing in a breath of life, breathing out a breath of love. As we share together today the joys and sorrows of this community for Sunday, February 11th, 2024. May all these joys and all these sorrows, both spoken and unspoken, be held together with love in our hearts as we enter into a moment of silence. Spirit of life, source of all, We are reminded today of the cycles of living. We are reminded of new life and of death and of all the joys and struggles that we find in between. May you remind us of our deep interconnection and our call to celebrate our joys with each other. And not only to celebrate them, but to seek out ways that we can all connect with more joy and more love in our life. May we be reminded through you of how much our struggles are often created by our fellow humans. May we continue to learn to love instead of hate. May we continue to learn how to find and practice peace in this world that ever more continues to turn toward violence, toward war. May we learn to see and hear and experience each other for who we are, both our common humanity and our differences. And may we truly see those differences for what they are, a gift, beauty of your creation, not something to be feared. For all these things and more, today we pray, blessed be, and amen. Please go ahead and remain seated for our next hymn, which is familiar to many of us, This Little Light of Mine.
We continue to offer a litany of hope made up of the images, names, and inspiring quotes of figures throughout Black American history, as well as Unitarian Universalist history. James Baldwin, 1924 to 1987, writer. Those who say it can't be done are usually interrupted by others doing it.
Malcolm X, 1925 to 1965, Muslim minister and activist. We need more light about each other. Light creates understanding. Understanding creates love. Love creates patience, and patience creates unity.
Maya Angelou, 1928 to 2014, writer, teacher, and activist. Won't it be wonderful when Black history and Native American history and Jewish history and all of U.S. history is taught from one book, just U.S. history?
Audre Lorde, 1934 to 1992, writer and activist. It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences.
Muhammad Ali, 1942 to 2016, boxer and activist. Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing.
Marsha P. Johnson, 1945 to 1992, trans rights and AIDS activist, performer. None of us are free until we are all free.
Michelle Obama, attorney, author, former First Lady of the U.S. Your story is what you have, what you will always have. It is something to own.
Janet Mock, writer, producer, trans rights activist. I believe that telling our stories, first to ourselves and then to one another and the world, is a revolutionary act. It is an act that can be met with hostility, exclusion, and violence. It can also lead to love, understanding, transcendence, and community.
Reverend Dr. Sophia Bettencourt, UUA President. I truly believe that risking our stories teaching us something we could not have learned in any other way.
Amanda Gorman, National Youth Poet Laureate. Change is made of choices, and choices are made of character.
Our reading today is by poet, writer, and educator Lucille Clifton. From 1979 to 1985, she was Poet Laureate of Maryland. This poem is titled, "Won't You Celebrate With Me?" Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight, my other hand, come celebrate with me, that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed.
Black History Month has a rich history going back to the Black history movement in the early 20th century, and it became legally recognized as a month to celebrate in 1976. Proponents of it speak of the need to regularly teach and share Black history, and some critics wonder why Black history should be relegated to just 1 month. And in that lovely litany of hope that Sia and Amy just shared, there was a quote from Maya Angelou, which I think sums up the sentiment. Wouldn't it be wonderful when Black history and Native American history and Jewish history and all U.S. history was taught from one book, just U.S. history? Another way to say this is Black history is American history. It's not separate. You cannot tell the history of this country without telling Black history. The Constitution of the United States famously begins, "We the people." And such a perspective of our history means including Black history, Indigenous history, Hispanic history, Asian history, women's history, LGBTQ history, the history of workers' rights, the history of disability rights, the history of immigration itself. That all of this has happened throughout this country's existence, when people have constantly asked the question, who is we included in the Constitution? Now, a parallel to this struggle is also played out in our own faith tradition. And I think there's some lessons that we can learn, not only as a faith movement, but also in thinking about how we approach our country's history and how we approach our own connection to each other in our communities and in our nation. In 2019, the UUA General Assembly gathered under the banner of the power of we. And the folks that gathered asked that same question that others have asked about the Constitution. Who exactly is this we? In that GA, a couple years ago, the Reverend Marta Valentin offered a sermon on the last Sunday there called This Great Turning. And she said, when our Black, Indigenous, people of color communities are experiencing a Unitarian Universalism that is neither what we were told what it is, nor what we were told it could be, they ask, who is the we? And this question concerns everybody, she points out, because it reminds us that this isn't just for certain individuals, that we're all swimming in the proverbial poison waters. When creating our future, she says, we have to dismantle some things, and then we have to consider what it is we want to keep. And she points out that not everything is good and not everything is bad, so we need to be careful in making this decision. And she says in her sermon, we're called to be archaeologists of our collective hearts and respectively sift through the blood-soaked rubble. It's time now for this great, delicate turning that we're engaged in. Now, she's referring to, again, to our UU tradition and our struggle to make sure that the we really means what it says we mean. And she quotes our now UUA president, Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, who said, we can never be the bearers of love and justice that this world desperately needs if the foundation that sustains us is still perpetuating the very same problems we long to solve. So she is arguing that as we UUs, if we want a country and a world that works for all, we also have to do the work on our own as individuals and as a collective. And we are archaeologists of the heart in this work, says Valentin. In this work, she wonders about new buildings constructed on top of sacred sites and structures. She wonders what sacred stories she holds that are buried inside of her. She says, those sacred stories must be built into the foundation because the old stories just won't do. We have lost sight of the sacred stories that preserve the soul of what Unitarian Universalism set out to do before the world got its hands on it. She wants us not to build over as a manifestation of power over, but we need to build with. She spoke of Mexico City's cathedral, which is built over Templo Mayor of the Aztec city of Tenochtitlan. Underneath this centuries-old structure of power lies 7 levels of pyramid. And as each dig brings new discovery, she says, clearly there is more to bring to light. She continues, we cannot deny that our beloved faith, our cathedral of sorts, was originally conceived by non-people of color, was built on a land not of its own, incorporated rituals and songs not of their making, and came together on 2 as yet unmet aspirations, that we are all one and that all of us would be saved. She continues, in this turning we have embarked on, there is a delicate dismantling for all of us because there is sacredness underneath. And she asks this important question, what deserves to be maintained and who is making that decision? And I bring this up as our faith tradition because it's something that's close to home to us. It brings all of this into a close reality, because I believe that the words she's using have many ways that can be applied not just to our faith tradition, but to our country as well. This is a large but really necessary endeavor within both our association and our nation. How do we make sure the we that we have promised about really includes we? Part of that work includes giving space for leadership for people who hold identities that have traditionally been on the margins of our culture. And if you have been paying attention to our association, we thankfully see more and more such leaders in our congregations and in the UUA, also in our communities and in the country. And part of that work also involves lifting up and centering stories of us all, of both our histories and our present realities. And there's sources that we can go to for that. The Litany of Hope that we heard earlier today had just little glimpses. Any one of those individuals, you can find a rich personal history that also is connected to our nation's history, and you can learn more. In the fall and winter version of the UU World was labeled Faithful Stories, and they offer diverse stories reframing of who we are as a faith. So if you received your copy and haven't looked at it, take a look at it. If you didn't receive a copy or don't know where yours went, go online to the UU World magazine and read these stories. Diverse histories offer us a reframing as well as a reminder of who we have been by bringing voice to experiences which have been shut out of the narrative. As I said last week, we need to collect diverse stories and reconstruct our collective story. So this does mean seeking out diverse stories, but it also means making sure we don't overlook important dimensions of those stories. Because when seeking out diverse stories as a culture and also as a faith tradition, we tend to gravitate towards stories of suffering at the expense of other experiences. So for example, if we're to tell the story of John Lewis, we're likely to tell the story of him getting beaten on Edward Pettus Bridge to illustrate his sacrifice and his struggle in that march at Selma. But focusing solely on such an experience, we then tend to define people by their suffering. And people are more than their suffering. We need to also tell the story when we're talking about John Lewis of the boy who preached to the chickens and grew up to be a civil rights leader and a U.S. senator who reminded us, get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. That story includes much more than struggle. That story includes joy, and that story includes inspiration. That story includes resilience. And I think that joy and that resilience can also be heard in that poem by Lucille Clifton that Alie offered earlier. Lucille Clifton writes, "Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no bottle. Born in Babylon, born non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight to my other hand. Come, celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed." These are the stories that we need to seek out. And we can't just collect these stories. We need to integrate them with our own. How is your life affected by these stories and the history that they contain? How is our nation's history retold, integrating these stories? We, the people, will never truly include all of us when Black history, Indigenous history, LGBTQ history, women's history, the history of disability rights, the history of workers' rights, the history of immigrants, the history of any people struggling to be included in the we, if they're treated as extra credit instead of the main course itself, they will never be part of the we. And when we say things like, this country has never been more divided than it is now, or our future has been so uncertain since 2016, we are actually doing exactly that. We're sidelining all these experiences that are really part of our history, because only a history that keeps those stories of struggle and resilience on the side can come to those conclusions that what we're experiencing is new. And integrating them, we may better see that we've been headed to this place all along. And by integrating them, it reminds us that this is not an end. We've actually been in similar places before, and we've survived. So this month, may we practice our celebration of Black history as a celebration of American history. May we seek out sacred stories of struggle, joy, imagination, inspiration, and resilience. And may those stories provide us with a much richer, more diverse, and more hopeful picture of who we have been, where we are, and where we are headed. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit with that forward-thinking thought to sing our closing hymn, Come and Go With Me. I'm going to invite Sam forward to help us read our chalice extinguishing words.
We extinguish this chalice flame, but not our promise to each other, to act with grace, to hold each other in love, to serve this community and our world. This promise of our heart serves as a reminder of how we live together. May it bring joy to our collective lives.
Let us part with these words by former UA President Reverend William G. Singford. Spirit of life and love, dear God of all nations, there is so much work to do. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see hope in our history and find the courage and voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. Amen. Blessed be. Thank you, Matt, for our music this morning. Thank you, Alie and Amy and Sia and Sam for being part of our service this morning. Thank you, Phil, for being solo on tech. Please do stay for coffee hour and connection. Blessings to you all.